Hello, this is the second of my videos on Shaykhism, this one dealing with Denis MacEoin's account of the life of Shaykh Ahmad al-Ahsa'i. This comes from an essay that Denis wrote for Encyclopedia Iranica back in 1984, last updated in 2011. It's available both online and in print, so please refer to the Iranica for more details. Denis also has entries in the Iranica on the Bālāsarī and two of the later Shaykhi leaders from Kalimat, Abul-Qasim Khan Ebrāhīmī and Abd-Al-Reza Khan Ebrāhīmī. As Denis died recently, it's appropriate to pay tribute to his major contributions to both Shaykhi studies and Babi studies in English. Apart from his entries in the Iranica, there's also a useful essay he wrote in Studies in Babi Baha'i History on early Shaykhi reactions to the Bab and his claims. I'll give the link in the description below. The essay was also included as part of his PhD thesis, which in turn is also found in his book from 2009, The Messiah of Shiraz. He was also the co-editor of Islam in the Modern World and published fiction under the pen names Daniel Easterman and Jonathan Aycliffe. So, Shaykh Ahmad al-Ahsa'i. He was born in Rajab 1166 of the Hijra, that's May 1753, in a small Shi'i village in the oasis of al-Ahsa'i, sometimes written al-Ahsa'i, near the east coast of the Arabian Peninsula in the greater Bahrain region. His family, originally nomadic Sunnis, had converted to Shi'ism 5 generations before this, at a time of widespread conversion in the area, and had settled in al-Ahsa'i at the same period. They belonged to the dominant clan of the ruling Bani Khaled, but do not appear to have been active in the politics of the region, and there's no evidence of any links between them and the religiously learned, the ulama. From two autobiographical accounts, it's clear that the young Shaykh Ahmad was given little encouragement to study, but that at his own insistence he was able to complete his elementary studies under a Shaykh in a nearby village. Later he found more advanced teachers, and by his 20s seems to have made considerable progress in Shi'i theology and philosophy. The identity of his teachers in this period is not known. He makes no mention of having travelled to any of the large settlements in the region to find suitable teachers. In any case, the obvious breadth and fundamental soundness of his learning by the time of his arrival in Iraq around 1790 indicates that he must have had competent masters from an early stage. At the same time, it's possible that many of the original elements in his later doctrine owed much to his being, in part at least, self-taught. There is evidence of neo-Karmati influence in the region after the 1760s, but the possibilities of links with the Shaykh remain purely speculative. He himself indicated that from early childhood he developed a predilection for introspection, seclusion, and asceticism. At an unspecified age, probably during adolescence, he experienced a series of dreams and visions of the type familiar to Shi'i piety, in which the Imams or the Prophet figured as transmitters of supernatural knowledge. In one dream recounted by Shaykh Ahmad, he believed that he had been granted ijazah, or permission to transmit knowledge, by each of the 12 Imams. His first visit to study at the Atabat, the Shi'i shrine cities in Iraq, was in 1186 of the Hijra, that's 1772-73, at the age of 20. Apparently he, at this point, aimed to study under the ulama who had congregated in the region under the general direction of Bahani. Not long after his arrival, however, a plague broke out in Iraq and he was forced to return to al-Ahsa'i. He married his first wife shortly after this and appears to have abandoned any plans to return to the Atabad. The next 20 years or so were spent in al-Ahsa'i and in Bahrain proper, where he spent 4 years, during which period he studied Shaykh and Kalam and read works on theosophy or divine wisdom, the Hikmah Ilahiyya, including texts by Mullah Sadra and Musanafes. He received what seems to have been his first formal ijazah in 1790 from Shaykh Ahmad ibn Hassan Bahraini Damastani, a pupil of Shaykh Yusuf Bahrani. His earliest known works also date from about this time, amongst them a commentary on the Tafsir of Heli and a treatise on the subject of Qadr. Now in his late 30s, he'd succeeded in attracting some attention in the region, but apparently more as a saint than as a scholar. He moved again to the Atabad in the early 1790s in response to the Wahhabi threat to al-Ahsa'i and Bahrain. His stay this time was prolonged, and he studied under several Shi'i ulama, mostly pupils of Bahani, who had recently died. Before long, he'd obtained comprehensive ijazat from at least 5 teachers: Sayyid Muhammad Mahdi Tabatabai, Bahrul Ulum, Sheikh Jafar Najafi, Sayyid Ali Tabatabai, Mirza Muhammad Mahdi, and Sheikh Hussein ibn Muhammad Darazi Bahrani. And after the last of these ijazah, he began a period of shifting from place to place in southern Iraq, including 3 periods of residence in Basra. In 1221 of the Hijra, 1806, he performed pilgrimage to Mashhad in Iran. Returning through Yazd, he was persuaded by the populace to remain there. Thus began a stay of almost 20 years in Iran, during which the Shaykh's reputation spread throughout the country and beyond. By 1808, Fath Ali Shah himself began to correspond with him, probably at the suggestion of Ebrāhīmī Khan Zahir-Dawleh, the governor of Kerman, who had become one of the Shaykh's most devoted admirers. Al-Ahsa'i spent the winter of 1808-1809 as a guest of the king in Tehran, but could not be persuaded to transfer his residence there permanently. Returning to Yazd, he settled down more seriously to write the letters and commentaries on which his growing fame was to be built. By 1814, however, tensions seem to have developed between Ahsa'i and some of the notables of Yazd, probably because of the growing influence that he had in the region. Leaving Yazd, he made for Kermanshah, probably on the invitation of Muhammad Ali Mirza, under whose patronage he remained with occasional absences until about 1 year after the prince's death in 1821. Several of the Shaykh's most important works belong to this period, and Denis lists those in the article. In 1817, he performed what seems to have been his first pilgrimage to Mecca, following which he stayed for 8 months in the Shi'i shrine cities of Najaf and Karbala. With the death of Muhammad Ali Mirza in 1821, Kermanshah and the surrounding region fell into rapid decline. In 1822, Shaykh Ahmad left again for Mashhad, traveling via Qom and Qazvin. In Qazvin, he was denounced as a heretic for the first time by Mullah Muhammad Taqi Barakani, who condemned certain passages of the Shaykh's writings as contrary to orthodox teachings on the resurrection. Leaving the matter unresolved, Al-Ahsa'i continued his pilgrimage, after which he visited Yazd and Esfahan. He stayed as the guest of Abdullah Khan Amin-Dawleh and was treated by both ulama and civic dignitaries as a visitor of considerable importance. Although several months had elapsed since the pronouncement of takfir, or condemnation, by Bālāsarī, it's clear from his reception in Isfahan that its effect had not yet made itself felt outside Qazvin. The Shaykh returned to Kermanshah in June 1823, but then left after a year to settle in Karbala. Now aged 70, he probably planned to remain at the Atabat for the remainder of his life. But Bālāsarī had by this time gained a number of supporters at the shrines in Iraq, including al-Ahsa'i, Muhammad Mahdi Tabatabai, and others. Although many eminent ulama in Iran and Iraq continued to express open admiration and support for al-Ahsa'i, his opponents mounted a successful campaign against him at the Atabat. Threatened by these efforts, the Shaykh felt compelled to leave Karbala for Mecca, traveling via Baghdad and Syria. He died on the 21st of Zulqa'dah, 1241, that's the 27th of June, 1826, aged 73. His grave is in the Babi cemetery in Medina. So thank you for listening, and particular thanks to my patrons for their kind support and encouragement, without which I wouldn't be able to make these videos. Please do, if you want, to support my channel. You're very welcome to do so. Like, comment and share on the videos. Subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. I'll give Patreon and PayPal links below if you want to provide practical support. Next week, we'll deal with Shaykh Ahmad's relationship to Shaykhism. Have a good day.